gives me great pleasure to talk to Ben Esposito of Giant Sparrow Games, makers of Unfinished Swan, which is among my most favorite games I played this year.
Wow, thanks.
Although, I have to say, I think one of the most interesting challenges, and it's not alone to Unfinished Swan, is it starts to broaden the definition of what is a game.
Well, we say it's an exploration game, probably because the core grain that is carried throughout the entire thing is that you're exploring space and architecture using various different mechanics. So like our thread is exploration, and we tried explicitly not to make a puzzle game. And we failed in some regards because there are some puzzles, but we tried to like dance around those boundaries and give people just enough to like appreciate the exploration of the game.
I mean, what's interesting is that you begin, I think as most people know the game, with just kind of a ball of paint that starts to, in a black and white space, reveal these various structures. But the mechanic does change up, but you never formally tell the player what to do. I mean, was that a point of discussion about how much? I mean, it works. I think it would have hurt the experience if you got more formalized about a user interface. But I mean, that's a very daring thing to take on.
And a lot of people told us that you can't do that. You have to tell people what buttons to press. And we said, like, look, we've tested this with over 100 people. They can figure it out. Like,
eventually, you will press the right button. There's only so many of the
It's true. Yeah. Statistically speaking, you will. But also, like, one of the things we wanted to do in a mature game, this is what we consider the Unfinished Swan, is we respect the player's knowledge of video games. And so, like, you've got a controller, you notice that it's first person, you know first person controls on a console. Like, we just want to respect you and say, like, this isn't how you play the game, it's up to you.
And as you said, it's a mature game. That doesn't mean it has an M rating or it has any kind of vile content or anything like that. But it is a game that, while on the surface it might look simplistic, tonally and experientially, it definitely is something that's geared towards an older demographic.
For sure, yeah. And the theme of the game really is like what you leave behind when you die, and how like a lot of things are not permanent. So like you try to build an empire and you end up with a pile of junk, and that's fine.
No, I mean, but and this is kind of your first game you put out there.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you your age or anything like that. I'm just going to make the assumption you were younger than I.
Okay.
I was very struck and very affected by this game that was really this meditation on creation, immortality, and kind of that sense of your existence after you sort of pass from this mortal coil. That is not thematically what I tend to find from a first outing of a designer. I mean, I'm just curious why you went to such rarefied material when it comes to games.
It's kind of a discussion between the creative director, Ian, me, a producer. We wanted to make a mature game, so we chose a subject matter that was appropriate for that, but also it's kind of autobiographical, not for me, for Ian's life. He's tried so many different things. He was a writer. He did some QA for games, but never was really into games. And so he wanted to make something that kind of chronicled the process of making this crazy big game. And so like all of the little touches are like little notes that happened along the way, like that was us producing the game. And
I mean, it's fascinating because it's rarely spoken of, but you get a sense of it that there's a lot of detritus in the history of video games, the things that just never came to fruition and no one even knew about, but many people put a lot of time and effort into it.
Exactly, and so we wanted to touch on that a lot. We wanted, like, the process of making the game was us just saying, like, that's not gonna work, get rid of it, that's not gonna work. And so, like, we fumbled, like, we didn't make the game we necessarily wanted to make, but we made a game that we think is really awesome. And so, like, that was kind of the motivation behind this decision to have Terry Gilliam voice the king.
And then my statue spoke and said,
"Help me! Some little hooligan is running around splattering everything in the garden."
He's usually not people's first choice for voice acting because he just doesn't necessarily do that. But thematically, like, his body of work speaks directly to what we're trying to do with the Unfinished Swan, and that's kind of how he fit into that mix. Like I said earlier, we're trying not to make a puzzle game. We're not trying not to make an adventure game. We're trying to like push the boundaries in a lot of ways. And to do that, we had to like come up with all new techniques for doing these things. And so a lot of the mechanics, we don't put restrictions on them. Like the first thing you do in a puzzle game is you say like, you can splat paint, but only 5 splats or something. And so like everything we built had that in mind of like player expression and freedom. And so like each mechanic that you get is all about creativity. And so we'd never like box ourselves into a genre doing that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the most impressive is that in that first level, technically, by just having black and white, that has caused a great deal of danger for other people that have gone down that path, because that perception really can get altered. In addition, you almost set up the potential where the player could just put black paint everywhere and have no idea where to go. I mean, I would love to just get a sense of how long it took you to be able to find a way that you could give that freedom to the player and they wouldn't completely screw themselves in the process.
It took a lot of playtesting. Like, so many people went through such trouble for you to enjoy this game. Because one of the things we wanted to
appreciate it.
We wanted to build into the game like this sense that if you do too much, then you hurt yourself. Like if you paint everything black, you're gonna be in trouble. We do have like safety valves where like if you notice the sky is always white, and so if you do manage to paint everything black, you can navigate with the sky. But like stuff like that came in as a result of people just like getting lost and fumbling. And so like it's a game about feel, and we had to have a lot of people feel it out first in order to make it work.
Well, Ben, I mean, I would love to talk with you more at a later date because I'm still just absolutely fascinated. It's a very fresh memory of finishing this game. Now, if you haven't seen the Revision 3 review of Unfinished Swan, well, you can. You just go to youtube.com/rev3games. You can also go to revision3.com, and of course, you can also subscribe at iTunes. And if you're interested in playing the game, well, it is currently available now on the PlayStation Network.